Okay, so you updated yesterday, you were saying, and that went well?
Yes, well, I mean, it went well, other than the fact that, so we've got an iMac that is newer, and that was great. And then 2 MacBooks, one of which is just right below the line there. Mountain Lion will not work on MacBooks. The other one will load Mountain Lion, but doesn't do AirPlay. I guess you got to be like 2011 for the AirPlay feature to work.
Yeah, I haven't tried it.
So I don't know. I was a little bummed about that. I thought
do you have an Apple TV?
Do
an Apple TV too?
It's version 2.
Yeah. See, because my Apple TV is the very, very first one.
Oh, okay. So you're not doing AirPlay much
at all. It doesn't work. It doesn't exist on that one. And so because we need in order for us to make use of an AirPlay or an Apple TV, newer one, we'd have to get a new TV. We still have an old TV.
Oh, yeah. That's
It sucks. It's a limiting factor, but we don't watch TV all that much.
Yeah, you have to have HDMI.
The TV we're watching right now, I'll tell you what, is the Olympics.
I know, that's been great. Huh?
What do you think of how NBC has done this? What do you think of are you up on the NBC fail thing here?
Well, there are, yeah. I mean, I know it's a big production, and when I tune in, for the most part, I'm not complaining. I'm watching a few events and thinking, okay, whatever. And then I read the next day, Brandi Chastain is having a Twitter fight with.
The first way you said it is probably right.
With
it's a Twitter fart,
right? And then they cut out of the opening ceremonies for the 7 minutes of tribute to the fallen victims of a terrorist attack in London.
Yeah, right. Because it's not targeted to the U.S. audience. That was their
worst. And then what else? There was some other things that somebody did a whole piece on the sap factor and how they've just cranked it up to a pretty what's the word? I don't know. To a level that's, what's the word? Schlocky?
Schlock, yeah. Sap. It's sappy and schlocky.
I mean, everyone likes to get, that's why you watch the Olympics is, some kid had a paper route or something, or had to leave their family and move 2 states away and live with grandma just to train with so-and-so, or they hawked their house. And those stories make the Olympics a whole different sport than watching, professional football. But at the same time, it's sort of like they've been pulling out a few more stops than usual to try to jerk your tears when somebody comes in second place.
Yeah, I don't know that I actually don't mind my heartstrings being pulled intentionally in a space like this, right? Like I really don't mind, because that's kind of why I tune in, right? I want the Chariots of Fire experience when I tune into this. I want the agony of defeat. They said that there was a line used in last night's epic delayed rebroadcast. Primetime rebroadcast where they said, about the U.S. men's gymnastics team was, he says, they will discover why doing the expected could be the hardest thing ever. Jeez. And I'm nearly bawling at that point. I'm so into the graphics and the thing swinging by and logos, and then the dudes that are just tanks. How do they make their bodies do that? I'm struggling to run 3 minutes in a row, and it's just you're in it, you're in the moment. I like that.
They're tanks.
What?
I said, yeah, they're tanks. It's just you look at them and think, well, I guess of course you're a gymnastics, that's your thing because that's your body,
right? What is I don't know what the fact that one of the trending topics beginning the Olympics was hashtag shut up Matt Lauer, I think is a sign that just I don't know. What did you think of the opening ceremonies? I mean, just jumping into the opening ceremonies, how'd they hit you? It's been 2 days, 3 days.
the very opening where there's the sheep and the throwing the balls in the aprons and that whole choreography.
Yeah, the Shire. They were all hobbits. It was the hobbits.
Anyway, I thought it was, if you can't, nobody can beat Beijing. I don't think anyone ever will, because that just required hurting people.
I think China destroyed opening ceremonies for the rest of us.
And so I thought, awesome. England hires Danny Boyle.
Yeah,
and he gets creative. I did not like the sequence of like losing the cell phone and going through.
Horrible.
That was just craziness.
Yeah.
But Rowan Atkinson, Chariots of Fire, I laughed the whole way through it. Thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't expect it. And, which is what's great is when you don't quite see that coming. The James Bond thing, I thought they really, and his film footage that kind of cut throughout it was amazing. His sort of going around London and going through the subways or coming up from overhead, and a lot of different like film footage that he had created. I thought, really, like, it was amazing. It had some really insane moments, like the inflatable baby and the entire homage to the national health system, I thought was an interesting thing for the Olympics, but whatever.
Okay, there are two things that I think are fantastic about that. The first one is, yes, the homage to the national health system that they put, Danny Boyle made such a big deal about that being such a major contribution, to the world, big enough to put it in the opening ceremonies. The fact that, we think of James Bond movies as movies, and I think his role in the opening ceremonies illustrates that we don't quite understand the level to which the James Bond character is revered in Great Britain.
Probably.
And so that was fascinating. And I think my favorite part was Tim Berners-Lee, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And it was also the low of the entire event for me when Meredith Vieira, Meredith Vieira turns around and says, "Oh, it's Tim Berners-Lee," and he's typing and he's sending a tweet. Don't know who he is. Google him. It's not like she's, I know she's not a dumb person, right? She's not dumb, but saying things like that that's playing dumb, and it's not cool anymore to do that. It's not funny. It's not cool. This guy is pretty important without him, arguably we wouldn't be having that opening ceremony event without the World Wide Web. And here's the guy who invented it. He's pretty important. Get it right.
If you don't know, and obviously they had to have had some liner notes for every element of the show, I would think. And then you say that, and then you just don't say anything.
Yeah.
To just sort of blabber all over and sound ignorant, and then just make it. And it was big. I think. That stuff is so grand. I mean, those opening ceremonies are just, you're trying to put. I remember when Salt Lake, it was like you're trying to mix the Pioneers with the rock band Kiss, and kids skating with lights in their hands with Willie Nelson, and it doesn't. I mean, it's really a tough thing to pull off.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to pick a few holes, and say, well, that was pretty weird, or that kind of went a little far, whatever. But it showed a lot of style, a lot of flair, a ton of thought, and it was really, outside of a few moments where I just thought, I'll go.
That middle section was a mess, and but otherwise it was beautiful. And they created some new iconic B-roll, Olympic B-roll, right? The forging of the rings overhead, the raining fireworks in the Olympic rings, I think is good. Where that's going to be with us for the next 2 decades and beyond. and so that was cool. Some of the LCD seats and some of the effects they did with the audience was fantastic. So there was some new iconic energy or iconic imagery added to the canon of Olympic imagery that was cool. How is the time delay hitting you? Like NBC's handling of the actual broadcast, because they're getting a lot of credit and a lot of flack.
Well, I guess what I haven't done is, find the alternate channels where I assume you can watch live feeds. And I haven't really worried about that because I'm pretty okay with the fact that they're showing, primetime delayed footage. Is that what you're talking about? Is just the fact that they're happening?
You get your 4 hours of, highlight reel footage in the evening.
Which doesn't bother me at all. I mean, that's the way it was in Barcelona, right? I mean, I think it was pretty much the same thing.
Well, it was very similar. The difference this year is that, this year Comcast owns NBC.
Yeah.
Right. And this year, NBC is live streaming more footage than ever before. Right. So if you want it, you can go and get if there is what NBC has said is if there is a camera on it, it will be live streamed or broadcast. So they are forecasting to have broadcast over 3,500 hours of Olympic events live streamed to the web by the time this thing is over, which I think that's fantastic. Now, what does it take to actually see it? That's a little bit trickier. So in order to see it, you have to, download an app. You have to go to the NBC Olympics website and then log into the special site. And what you have to have is a paid cable account that gets you where you have paid up for, certain NBC properties. And if you can log in with user credentials with your cable provider, then you have access to this special. It's essentially YouTube. YouTube is providing all the backbone for the streaming video. You access this sort of gated community where you can see all the 3,500 streaming hours. And so if you're a cord cutter, if you don't have a paid cable account, you can't see that stuff.
Yeah, that sucks. I got as far the other day. I went to the iPad and opened up Safari, NBC Olympics. And the only page that they deliver you is click here to download the app.
Yeah.
So go to the App Store just to see what kind of reviews it's getting. And it was getting just skewered.
The app is terrible. Did you spend any time with it?
Oh, I didn't download it. I just thought, why bother?
It's a mess.
Really bad.
As far as I can tell, it's just it's an embedded kind of HTML web page inside of an app, and it's using the Adobe framework developer, and it's just slow. It's terrible. It's not a native app, and I'm pretty sure they did that to get it out quickly and get it on across multiple platforms at the same time. And they are doing frequent updates. It seems like every time I open it, there's another update, but it doesn't seem to matter. It's slow, and you spend a couple minutes with it just trying to get the metal updates, and it doesn't make any sense. And so you shut it off.
So all of these sort of barriers and create a few hoops of being a Comcast customer or whatever, or I don't get how that helps when, you're putting all of this energy into live streaming and people want access and you've got essentially a brand here that you bought into, the Olympic brand you paid over $1 billion for or whatever. And then, the cost to produce. And then you make it limited and restrictive and somewhat cumbersome. I don't know what point that serves and this is where I'm just sort of confused about how media properties view these things. If I turn on the TV and I'm watching it, say just the free local NBC broadcast, I'm watching commercials. I figure it's all paid for and they've got tons of sponsors and there are commercials and I'm forced to watch the commercials.
And let's just say
I don't really watch a lot of the commercials because I've got a DVR on my TV, so those get skipped. But when I'm watching them sort of on a forced live stream, I don't have the ability to record those, so I have to watch the commercials. So you would think they'd even make a little bit more money on some of those, exclusive live stream kind of experiences. So why restrict it?
Well, right? I think I have an idea.
Just to play commercials through it, like you do during prime time, and maybe they're not. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that was their decision. I just haven't watched them, so maybe there aren't commercial breaks, and that's why they want people to have a subscription. I don't know. Just seems like
here's the thing:
get people in, get people hooked, get people loving the Olympics, and you've got sponsors and commercials, and people have to watch them.
Here's the thing, though, that up to sort of, I think 3 days ago, we learned that all of the NBC properties had sold over $1 billion in ads. And that was for all of their properties across all of their NBC Universal, NBC Sports, broadcast properties. And of that, what have they sold for specifically for online advertising? 60 million. So $1 billion in ads for the overall network, only 60 million for online distribution. We have not reached that kind of inflection point where advertisers are saying, you know what, online ads, like watching the ads in stream, are as valuable as broadcast ads. So we're not going to pay as much for that.
You have to question either the sales effort or perhaps the application, how it's done, how it's been thought through. Because I think there are times when an ad online has greater value, either because you can't skip past it or because it's so you're able to be so targeted to either the program or the user or whatever. It's you're able to be more interactive. You can pull people into websites directly from watching it. I know what you're saying, and you're right. I mean, obviously, we haven't gotten to the point that that it's reached a value, I guess, that comes anywhere near just traditional broadcast. But at the same time, I don't think that's I don't think it's terribly logical what might be holding that back.
Well, I don't know that logic enters into it. I think looking at the performance right now illustrates that logic perhaps has not entered into it. And right now, or maybe logic has, but logic has bumped its head on the hard ceiling of the history of this particular industry. And so until I get your comment that we have to question the sales efforts. We have to question actually the ad packages likely from NBC ad sales. Like maybe they're just not packaging these in a way that facilitates these relationships, or maybe it's related to Comcast not wanting to give up. I mean, there's a lot we don't know, but I think what we can see more than anything right now, though, this is the point. What we can see now is that typically what happens in these sorts of convergence kind of events is the content comes and leads the way for the change. And this year, what is different, even if accessing it is absolutely kind of ridiculous for most people. If accessing it, by people like me, it's ridiculous for me because I don't have a cable account. So I have to find kind of loopholes, which do exist. But for, what has happened this year is we have more content being broadcast and streamed on the web than ever before, which makes me think that next time round, let's look at Rio, Sochi first, and then Rio for next Summer Olympics in 2016. I have to imagine that by then the change will have occurred, and that we will be, we'll be to a point where, the broadcaster, where NBC actually, trusts us to get the value that they need us to get from the online ad experience.
Well, and I'll be going back to this until I find something better, but I go back to that Coachella live feed, which did the same thing. They used the YouTube backbone. So it was built on a YouTube platform, which was great. It wasn't buggy. It worked well. It had high quality. It was logically done in terms of the times. There was a little bit of lag. I mean, not everything was directly live, but they really did it well. And there's no barriers to getting there. Well, let's say next year at Coachella, maybe they do charge. I don't know. Maybe they just get some advertising that they didn't get this time. I don't know what they're thinking. But how easy for them to then, if they're going to pull people into that channel, and let's say they have sold advertising, that would be a first, I think. But let's say they've done that, and they sort of partner with that advertiser or that sponsor to, let's say you just go on Facebook, target your demographic, and then feed people into this site, which has no real restriction to getting into it. But you feed people in to build that online audience. Obviously, this one's a little tricky because there's the ticket sales component, but we're talking about the Olympics. None of us are going to be flying to England anytime soon. So why not get people in front of that? And again, so let's say, let's say you sell bike helmets and it's the cycling event, and you decide to put a ton of money into advertising the online stream only, and you partner with NBC to advertise online before and during the event to pull live viewers in and build your audience and make it, interactive on some level. Just seems like, why put that barrier? Why not make it as easy as possible to get eyeballs? And then, I don't know, maybe it's more up to the sponsors than I'm blaming NBC exclusively, but maybe the sponsors need to get creative and push a few of these things.
Well, I think so. And I think there's another piece of it.
Push how it's executed.
I think there's another piece of it, which is that, one of the things we haven't seen from the Olympics, which I think would be a really interesting kind of a development, is that we see we have the physical attendee who can actually go to the Olympics and see them in London and can afford to pay the tickets there. Why haven't we seen any sort of virtual ticketing offering? With 3,500 hours streaming, it seems logical to start having packages that say, I'm a huge fan of these 6 sports, and I'd like to go ahead and buy a ticket for the duration of the Olympics to watch every single minute streamed on YouTube for $500 for the 2 weeks for those 6 sports. And that's a package I want access to, and I can log in and it'll show me the sports that I have access to, and I can add and remove sports from there. And now suddenly I'm a virtual virtual visitor to the Olympics and get to see the Olympic experience at the level that I want to invest in. And maybe it costs me $300, maybe it's $500, whatever. The ticket to get in the gates at in the Olympic Gardens, like right now, I think the only tickets left, they were saying on opening day, were $2,500 and up.
If you're able to airplay that, to your big screen in your living room, and able to get more than just a Matt Lauer highlight reel, you're able to be pulled into the areas around. You've just got more leeway. If you're live streaming something, you can go into the crowds, you can go, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to necessarily be just the highlight of the event. If this is really your event, or let's say you're from London and you're stuck in America and you just want you want to feel like you're there.
I want the pay-per-view experience for the Olympics, and I want to be able to select what I see. And the problem is the technology is there, and the technology is proven to be there because they're doing it this year. I mean, they're doing it in a way that makes, that frustrates me personally, and I know frustrates a lot of people, this having access to the cable, to a paid cable plan is very frustrating. But I would absolutely pay for certain sports to be able to see all of them. I mean, we're a big swimming household, and we would pay, for direct access to, all the pay-per-view swimming events when we want to see them live.
And again, if you've done that, so in future Olympics, I would think we should expect to see this. But if you've done that, you've bought into, say, a swimming package, having done that, and maybe watching a mix of online or pay-per-view or whatever, I think maybe mostly live streaming, maybe you get access to more interviews with parents and coaches and teachers, and you know what I mean? It's more immersive. It's more, it's not a diluted, mix of swimming trying to package into 4 hours with gymnastics and a bunch of other things, right. But maybe they actually really expand the experience for you, pull you into the lives of the swimmers from the other countries, and and tell you even more, like just give you more of the experience, more of the before and the after, and the coaches talking to the athletes, and you know what I mean?
Totally, absolutely, and that allows the content provider, right? That allows NBC to create a different experience at home, and as long as they already have a camera on these events, and we know they already have commentators on these events. Actually, in some cases they don't. In some cases, they just have the camera on the event, as far as I understand. But it gives us kind of the broadcast experience that we want. And for an event like this, the challenge is this. I think this is the problem, that NBC paid $2.2 billion for the rights to do this, as far as I can gather. And they have sold $1 billion in ad sales. And so they've got, there is a shortfall, and they need to make that up. And they're hoping to make that up through continued, sales through the course of the next 15 days. And the problem is they own the rights to broadcast, but the world feels like they own the rights to the event, right? I mean, I, as an American citizen, feel like, my emotional response is, my team is in Great Britain representing me. I deserve this.
Yeah, that's the thing. And there's really not any, I think, more political organization or relationship that on the planet than the International Olympic Committee and then NBC, and the combined brand protecting and exclusivity, ticket sales. I mean, they clamp down like nobody's business. Any use of the Olympic rings, for instance, they're on you. It doesn't matter if you're a little kid with a bake sale on the corner, you're getting shut down if you're using any Olympic brand.
And this year, I believe London 2012 is actually a restricted fare. You can't say London 2012 together. You can't use that in your own advertising.
Yeah. Did you see the Daily Show? He said, I can't remember his description, but it was something like an international sporting event, a ring-based competition, some really laborious description that he had up there, because he was just going to talk a little bit about the Olympics opening ceremony. But and I don't know if they had been restricted from referring to it, but boy, is it restrictive. I mean, absolutely, they are protecting everything about it to just the highest degree of trademark. And so I don't know, maybe the Olympics won't be on the forefront 4 years from now, or even 2 years from now with the Winter Games. But boy, you'd like to see it happen. Like you said, these are our athletes, this is our national pride. This is something we feel like we should have access to. But it's a horrible political machine that really runs the whole thing.
That's the challenge right there.
It's crazy. I was going to ask you,
I was going to ask you something too.
What's that?
I was going to ask you something too.
Let me just jump in quick.
All right, do your thing first.
Because the whole thing about subscriptions versus, sponsorship, and that sort of thing. Yeah. And obviously there must be, some real revenue in getting people on subscriptions. So I wonder, we've brought up HBO Go before, and I feel like, hey, this is a great app and I love having access to all these movies. And you think these guys suck because I'm not an HBO subscriber and I can't get access to them. So it drives me crazy. I'm curious, would you pay the basic HBO subscription price to have access to their online content? Would that be too much money for you? Would you pay some sort of subscription just for the online only?
What is wait a minute. What is the subscription price? Like, I don't know that there is a subscription price for HBO, because you can only get it.
I know, call it 15. That's probably an average.
Well, this is the problem though, because because the price that you pay to add HBO as a premium channel, let's say it's $12 a month, right, to your current cable bill, is not the price that the cable company pays HBO for that edition, right? Because the cable company pays, much, much more than that to HBO. And HBO, you can't subscribe directly because, HBO, I think, having run the numbers, so to speak, has discovered that taking individual subscriptions would not allow them to, make up the shortfall that they would, invariably lose when cable providers get mad. And Because right now HBO is paid based on every cable subscriber, not just cable subscribers who add HBO to their plan. Does that clear?
Yeah.
Right. They get a pimp fee.
It's a weird world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
well,
the question is, would I
don't...
pay? But the question is not would I pay $15? It's would I pay, $45 or $50 a month, for access to HBO? And the answer there is no.
Yeah.
What I would pay for, though, and
not. So
what I would pay for is
something's got to give at some point, right? I mean, the a la carte question is going to come up again. It has to, really. I know it flopped the last time around, and there are some powerful forces against a la carte cable subscriptions, but I just think the demand is going to grow every year for that.
I think so too, and it's going to get pretty dark, I think, before it gets better. I think the idea of paying per show is, domestically, it works pretty well. I love that I can go to iTunes and pay for my for access to Game of Thrones. I deeply wish I could do it when it's actually broadcast, but I understand the relationships in place that make that, complicated for HBO and for cable providers.
Conversely, Pete, and yes, that is better. All things considered, that's better. But is there also value to, hey, the whole season's available. I don't have to wait a week between episodes. If they've built me up, for the next one, I can wait until the whole season's available. And if I want to have a marathon one weekend, I can do that, and they'll all be new to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's the point. And in that respect, I think we have Netflix and Hulu are going to be the predominantly Netflix. I think they're going to be the institutions that shake that up enough for us to see that you end up with these TV shows that they're just going to dump onto the network and let me schedule it myself. When it's ready, I can watch it.
Now, do you think Hulu's stock, I say with air quotes, goes up with Apple's AirPlay?
Well, I don't know, because just this morning it was announced that Hulu Plus is available on Apple TV.
Oh, I need to write that down.
Yeah. So now it's a new widget, and so
that's a new one.
I think that's that's probably in some part a response to Mountain Lion and AirPlay. You know what? I mean, if let's go ahead and control that experience, and as long as if people are already signing up and making use of it, let's go ahead and just give them the whole banana. I don't know what that. I think mostly Hulu Plus is just seeing gosh, we want to be on every platform, and I think that's smart. It's important to be in the stream, and Apple TV, in spite of being Apple's hobby, is still a phenomenally successful product. So. But I was going to ask you, what are your favorite spots that you've seen in prime time, and some that you feel don't quite hit the mark?
Okay, my favorite so far, unless I'm forgetting something else, but my favorite I saw last night was an Old Spice commercial.
Fantastic. I
loved every minute of
the smell.
It was a minute, every second.
The Smelf one.
Which one?
I'm breaking up with Heather. What's her name? Because I need space.
This was the one where he's imagining himself to be all these, like, you can just imagine it and do it. And one of them was like, you can compete in any sport and it's the Olympics, but he's the horse and he's got a jockey riding his back and he beats all the other horses in a horse race. That was just one little clip. Like, it's some guy with a little bit of a cornrow kind of a hairdo. And anyway, it was just abstract and surreal and just hilarious.
It was hilarious.
Be anything or whatever. You can even change your deodorant.
Yeah, you can have confidence. I can't remember what the tagline, but it was like you can have confidence in your smelf or something like that. SMELF.
Smelf. Uh-huh.
It was brilliant.
Kennedy still, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. I liked the Visa Burj Khalifa dive.
I don't recall that one.
Oh, it's David what's his name? David Boudia.
I don't know.
David Boudia dives off the Burj Khalifa in this TV ad, and it starts with him. There's this kind of long Ghost Protocol pan around him standing on top of the Burj Khalifa, and then he dives off into the pool, and it's something David Boudia will have done so many dives that it will be the equivalent of diving off the Burj Khalifa 180 times. And then as soon as he hits the water, it cuts to underneath the water, and 180 David Boudias dive into the water at different sort of planes. And it's quite beautiful. It's a wonderful ad. What do you think about we were talking about Mountain Lion earlier. What do you think of the new Apple ads?
Oh, I don't like them.
Yeah, I think they're dumb. I think they're bad.
I don't think Jobs ever would have okayed those ones. That's just an opinion that I'm speculating on. Who knows? But
yeah, there was a really interesting piece this morning that I'll post on Facebook that from the former Chiat Day ad director commenting on just how bad these ads are. And he actually had that comment. He said, I'm not saying that, Steve would or would not have done this. Steve was capable of major gaffes in his perception of public opinion. And by and large, he got pretty good at it, but he was capable of doing things that were pretty dumb. It's hard to say whether or not he would have, okayed these ads. But in general, he said they're really terrible. And, God, they're terrible on a number of levels, I think.
I don't like them at all. I think they took the obvious thing, which is to say, our stores are now so ubiquitous and our employees, uniformed. And so we can put them in an ad. And if you don't even have the volume up, that we're essentially trying to say that our service is great and our employees are great and we're connecting you to our product that way. But I get nothing out of it. I don't feel a brand. I don't feel inspired. And I think most of the time those commercials have run, I've just had the volume down and hadn't had any. Or I would have had to I don't know, quiet the room to watch it or to pay attention, or I had no desire to. I just don't see anything about it. I'm disappointed. I don't like them at all.
Yeah, I am too. I think, I think the message is interesting because, I think it's about staff. I think it's about the genius relationship, right? It's about the what those geniuses are. And, at the core of the message, what we're seeing is, Apple saying, look, unless you already own a Mac, you may not know that this genius thing exists, right? If you've never been in a store, you don't know about the genius. So we're going to use these ads to introduce you to this friendly genius. And we're going to introduce him to you with the crazy, dad who's expecting a baby, who's having a baby that night. We're going to do it on the airplane, which is, but at what cost? And I think the cost is they have made the Apple product something that simpletons use.
Yeah. And, I almost think it's sort of like, I think they started heading in this direction by focusing so much on Siri. And I thought the logic of the Siri ads for iPhone 4S was we're not necessarily trying to get people who don't own an iPhone to buy one. We're trying to get people who have an older model to upgrade. And the one feature that we can really set apart here is Siri, because you don't have that if you have the 4, you got to get the 4S for it. And it's so cool that, that's what it's about. But what happened there to some degree, and I think with these even more so, is they've kind of gone away from that sort of a little bit more these are inspirational products, and if you put your mind to it, you can use them. I mean, Siri, I guess, was kind of like that. Like, you've got people using Siri for things that are just like, wow, you have to be really creative to think of those things, or you might not think that that's something you can do, and that is kind of the beauty of Siri, I guess. But they do that a lot with the iPad ads, that you can do this and you can do this and look what you can do and look how smart your kids will be and you have access to the world in this beautiful way. And then those kind of just leave you with a feeling that I'm sort of used to getting, I guess, from Apple ads. And I know that they don't have to do doing the same ad with the same feeling and the same sort of deal over and over again, they got to switch it up a bit, but I just don't get any real brand feeling. These just feel like a step back for me, and these aren't cheap spots to be buying. I mean, this is the Olympics. I don't know, not getting it.
I'm with you on that. I think it's sad.
And what they don't do, and maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen commercials, for instance, for the new operating system, and maybe that's just not really that big of a deal.
Well, that's interesting. It's been 3 days, and they're already saying, Apple released news yesterday morning saying that we've already, in 3 days, we've already seen 3 million people upgrade. And I think that's a testament to, just how solid an upgrade it is. I've just not heard complaints.
Well, I wait. What I usually do with one of these is I wait a little bit. I look online, whatever. And it's not so much that I care for myself. It's that my wife, it's her lifeblood. She's on the iMac. It's her, all day long. It's intense. And she's not necessarily in an office. She's directing people all over the world, more or less. But, and if something goes amiss, cable connection's out, or she can't get her email, but these become big problems because I'm the IT guy. Yeah. And it becomes very stressful when an upgrade goes wrong. It just can be a bad thing. So, I looked and I poked and I thought, well, I'm going to load it on another machine first, see, what is weird or what's hard to get used to, and I was like, I don't see anything. Let's just jump on. And she was having some buggy issues, some slowdowns anyways, yesterday, and I was trying to fix a few things. So I thought, let's just do it. And I just don't see it. It's so smooth to upgrade. It's so smooth. I mean, I think it's crazy that you have a new operating system and your old windows pop up your windows that were open while you were downloading and upgrading this new operating system, like application windows.
That is absolutely amazing. And it's kind of sad. Like it used to be, I remember when Windows XP came out and I took the day off of work because I'm that level of like nerd. Like I took a vacation day because I knew I was going to have to back up and wipe my computer and do a clean install. I never did an upgrade. And that is how it's always been. When I switched to Mac, it's the same thing. This update took 20 minutes, cost me $20, took 20 minutes, and I didn't even have to sit here. It wasn't very much fun. And that I find really sort of sad. There wasn't anything, like it just, everything works a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, and a little bit more polished. They got rid of some things that were kind of annoying. I love the new notification center. I love that Safari now has the unified search and address bar. I love that notes and reminders
very
have been
top right.
Yeah, notifications.
Center, love that.
I love that notes and reminders have been separated out from iCal, and I like messages a lot. I mean, they're just little kind of things that have been sort of variations on a theme for a long time, and in this case, I think work really, really well, and it was almost too easy to be satisfying.
And if it gets that much closer to the iCloud really being, I mean, I had very few complaints with Mobile Me and my iDisk, and it sort of worked. If I go back a couple of years, maybe there were a few buggy things. For some reason with my wife, though, I don't know if it was just set up differently or what. Or she didn't use it often enough, or she had glitches and things earlier on. They got smoother, but this iCloud conversion has been mostly problem-free. It's been completely problem-free for me. But if the applications in the operating system now just make it that much easier for this, I don't know, various desktops plus your iPhone plus your iPad, and to use the Apple products that way. And obviously, we have other products that's great with as well. But if it takes us that much closer to really having that all be smooth and be the kind of thing you want to use, which I think was pulling notes and reminders out like you're talking about. I didn't really use those that much, but I'd love to. And now I'm feeling like, okay, I can sort of see myself putting that to use instead of like sending myself emails all the time with a note, or setting up a calendar event to remember something. So anyway, I look forward to kind of pushing forward a little bit with the way those are supposed to work together. And I just have not seen any glitches or bugs, and I haven't read about any. So on that front, it's great. I am a little upset that the computer I'll be using Mountain Lion on won't have the AirPlay functionality, but I'm sure I'll get over that. And then the other thing is, I wanted to ask you, have you used the new dictation feature?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Am I missing something that when I speak into this thing, I'm not able to sort of real time see what's being written? I have to stop, click done, then see it, then speak again?
Yes, no, that's true. It is not like, so that's a great point. It's exactly like Siri on the iPhone. So what's happening here, and that's why when you first turn the feature on, like if you do an upgrade, the feature is not on by default. It actually...
Like Siri Canada and Siri England. It's Siri.
Siri, yeah, you were talking about it like it's Suri, like Tom Cruise's daughter and Katie's daughter. Suri is not on your phone or anywhere. It's Siri. So Siri is the way it works is it says we need access and we're going to be sending this. You're going to record a little audio file and we're going to be uploading it to Apple servers to analyze it, and then we're sending the text back to you. And we've gotten so good at that we're going to do it really fast, so it'll look like it's happening locally on your machine. But if you don't have an internet, if you don't have internet access, the dictation feature won't work, as far as I understand. And I haven't tested that on the phone, or on the computer, but that is absolutely the case on the phone. If you are out of range, dictation doesn't work, and I believe the same thing is going on on.
Makes sense. Whereas Dragon Speak is still a $300 program, right, to get the full version?
Yeah, I think it's come down, but it's Dragon that essentially is the Nuance. The company is Nuance that's behind Dragon, and it's their engine that Apple is using to do this dictation. So you're essentially getting that same kind of industrial strength dictation in Apple's dictation feature. You're just not getting that real time thing. So in that case, in that sense, if you're a Dragon user, you may want to keep it around. I have Dragon and I use it extensively, when it comes time to teach and I'm grading papers and doing my comments, in papers. And I'm going to try it using Apple's dictation. I don't know. I like it because it's less system intensive, and sometimes after, 2 hours of grading and doing a heavy dictation, I find the system gets a little, sluggish. And so far, using Apple's dictation has been quick, but you have to speak in sort of shorter bursts. Have you run into the kind of the limit of how long you can speak before it shuts you off?
No, I just tested it last night a little bit, and I was only going about 3 sentences at a time.
Yeah.
So
well, it'll be interesting to see kind of how it fits in. I'm interested to see how it ends up fitting into my workflow if I end up, having Dragon start launch again at startup. But so far, I've got it shut off. And
why exactly do you think that they have opted to have it work this way, so that it's centralized, it's sending it and then to them, and it's sending it back to you? Do you think that's good because it reduces the computing power needs, I guess, and the size of the operating system? Or do you think that it maybe was a licensing thing, that it made it cheaper for them to release a $20 operating system that way?
I honestly don't think it's either. I think those are sort of collateral benefits. But I honestly think that that Apple understands that voice is the future. And if they're going to, if they're going to really be a serious player in voice and voice navigation and sort of running computer devices of the future with your voice, they need to collect a lot of data. And every time you send a voice snippet up to the cloud, what you're giving Apple is the ability to analyze your unique voice tone and put it into their kind of the Borg voice voice system, and so it gets better. And that's one of the things I've noticed with Siri, the dictation on Siri, and using Siri to for basic functions on my phone, is that the first week there were things that I would throw it that were where it wouldn't catch me, and now I can run those same commands, and Siri understands me better. It understands kind of the nuance of my speech more clearly, and I think that's a function of Apple really putting the resources into improving iteratively every day and not just every time a major software update comes out. This gives them the ability to apply change and update in the cloud in real time, more or less real time, and not have to wait for me to adopt a new operating system.
Right, or get software updates. Also, I would imagine if they're as smart as I think they are, and I think they are, they would probably be monitoring regional dialects as they're being sent. So they're probably geo-basing, I would assume, some of the, the voice decoding. And so as you correct a word, and I assume this all just sort of happens automatically. But if I'm living in Alabama versus New York versus Salt Lake or someplace in Canada, would you think that they'd maybe take that into account when certain words are spoken and they expect to have it printed correctly, or the spelling is correct or whatever?
Absolutely. And I think I think this is I think it's a really smart way to implement dictation, and I think one of the things that Apple is testing, and I think believes, is that when using dictation, when sort of adopting dictation as kind of a lifestyle, computing lifestyle, people generally are not dictating book length missives with their voice in one stretch. And I think, having this little, generally when you're doing it, you're responding to a quick email, you're saying, yeah, I can make it to that meeting, and then you're done. Those kinds of everyday snippets are perfect for this style of implementation of voice dictation. I think it's gonna pay off well.
Well, yeah, I need to use it a little bit more. I'm excited because I did buy Dragon, the App Center version.
Mm-hmm.
It's less expensive and works only, I could kind of have to use it as a notepad, I guess, to speak into it, then copy and paste. This works, I believe, in every program, right?
Yeah, anywhere you can type. Yeah.
So that will mean, I haven't tested this yet, but let's say I'm in Safari and I'm using like a CM interface that would work there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So hey, that was the last thing I wanted to ask you is what you think about the changes to the App Store and distributing software in the App Store. Are you up with what Mountain Lion did with Gatekeeper? And this is by extension what Microsoft is doing with the Windows 8 software store.
Let's see if I got this right. I tried to update Handbrake last night. Handbrake is not sold through the App Center, and also has not been verified by Apple. Like, they haven't applied to be valid, and Handbrake, I'm sure, never will. But I, of course, trust Handbrake. So
I find that really funny. I mean, I do too.
Didn't work a couple times, and I, because they had written it funky. I don't know. I just wasn't paying attention. There's an easy override that you can get a program loaded, but yeah, they were stopping me and trying to make me feel like, dude, seriously, your life is in danger if you download this program.
Well, so what Gatekeeper does is it's essentially it's a system level option, a preference that is set, I believe, by default, that says, if you can only install apps from the Apple, so the Mac App Store. And I'm opening up my security settings here to see what the actual language is. Let's see, where is it even? Oh, Mac App Store. Okay, so allowed applications downloaded from the Mac App Store only, Mac App Store and identified developers, or anywhere. Now, anywhere is the most kind of wide open. You can download and install anywhere. It's in the general options of your security and privacy preference in system preferences. Mac App Store and identified developers adds an extra layer of security that says, if it's from the Mac App Store, it'll install, and if the developer if it's a signed developer authority, then it will install on your machine. So you can buy it outside the App Store, but the developer will have to have had a relationship with Apple and have a signed certificate accordingly. Or you can set this third level, which says you're not going to allow any software installed on this computer unless it comes from the Mac App Store. And even developers who have their signed security certificate will not be able to install on your machine unless it comes from the Mac App Store. And there are some limitations to apps that are sold through the App Store that can't have access to certain system level tools that these applications need to run. And the one that there are a couple that come to mind. One of them just left the App Store, a Postbox. It's an email client that says, we needed access to the level of the operating system that Apple wouldn't give us in order to stay in the App Store. So we're pulling from the App Store. If you want to buy our product, you have to buy it from our website, and we won't be available in the App Store. The other one that I use pretty religiously and is kind of the basis of my comment here is Text Expander. Are you a Text Expander user?
No.
God, it's a fantastic application that allows you to create snippets of text, and so you end up typing in a little code, anywhere you can type. Let's say I have, a paragraph of comments that I leave on a particular, paper as a response to something I'm grading in the classroom, and I type in, CCMNT for, comment. That's the code that I leave for comment, and as soon as I type that in, it goes bloop. And suddenly that CCMNT is changed to the full paragraph of text that I type repeatedly, saving me a couple of minutes that it would take to manually type that out. And so it's a great little app that runs in the system, and anywhere you can type, if there's text that you can copy or that you type frequently, you can just have these little codes, whether it's an email signature, whether it's an address, whatever it is that you type frequently, you can create these little snippets. I use it for code. If I'm, working, in a particular coding project, I have code snippets in there that I can type very quickly. So it's great.
So I'm just curious, where did you find the settings for the apps?
Go into security, go into system preferences, and then security and privacy, and then general. And it's the bottom half, and it's kind of grayed out unless you click the padlock.
Right, I didn't upgrade this system yet.
Oh,
sorry.
that would be why.
To figure something out that isn't on here. Okay, that's why I didn't see it.
So anyhow,
here's one comment about it, Pete.
Well, now I'm not done yet. I'm not done.
Then
you gotta let me finish. Okay, so be done. Right. So here's the thing, though. Text Expander just came out from Smile Software, just came out with version 4. And as a result of the changes with the Mac App Store, they are not, I've been using version 3. Text Expander version 4 is not available in the Mac App Store. And I find it interesting as I sort of step outside my body that I'm not upgrading because I'm not buying stuff that doesn't come from the Mac App Store anymore. And it's not because I care particularly about the system level issues that developers are going through. I understand there is pain there, but the convenience of the Mac App Store is too great for me to be. And when I updated these systems, I got my new MacBook Air a couple of weeks ago, and when I turned it on and went to the App Store and downloaded all my applications and didn't have to think about software serial numbers or anything like that, I realized I have changed. My behavior has changed, and I'm simply not buying apps that don't come from the App Store. In some cases, I'm buying apps again because they're in the Mac App Store and it's so convenient. And so, Marco Arment from Instapaper fame, one of my very favorite apps, wrote this post saying he's given up on the App Store, and he thinks a lot of great developers are giving up on the App Store because, because of these, the hyper control that Apple has exerted here regarding this, having these sandboxed apps. And he says, I'm not buying apps that I can't buy outside of the App Store anymore. Or, I'm restating his argument with a sledgehammer. That's not exactly what he said, but it was bearish on the App Store that he has lost trust and faith in the App Store. And I absolutely disagree. And I hope that, at least in my own behavior, I'm finding I'm just not interested in software that doesn't come from the App Store anymore.
Well, okay, so I'm glad that you asked to finish there because that's what I hoped you would say. All I was going to say is really that so I ran into one little problem last night with Handbrake, but that's a free one anyways. And there was an easy way to just temporarily okay, I'm going to allow this one, even though. But back to what you were saying, I completely agree, and it was particularly true with the latest, updating the operating system yesterday, and I'm able to go into the App Center, look at all of the apps that I've purchased. They're updating all the time, easy updates. They work on multiple computers. I don't have to buy one for each. And things like iWork are broken out, so I don't have to buy the entire package, even though I do anyways. But the price is great, and the updates are fairly consistent. I agree with you. I feel completely secure buying from the App Center. It's very convenient. I don't have to pull out a credit card or trust, somebody's security, like payment security, or set up an account somewhere. It's the most convenient thing. And I would love to see every app available through the App Center. I think it's a great way to go. And I think, if Apple has to do this maybe like you said, there's sort of some fits and starts, and people who for whatever reason don't want to be controlled or play along or whatever, and so they choose not to. I think it's in their best interest to get over that and figure out how this can work for them, because once you have downloaded anywhere from 5 to 20 apps through this service, you're pretty easily hooked.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction. Like, there are apps that, like Handbrake, that provide a single purpose, and that I recognize that purpose and function exists outside of the App Store guidelines. And that's one that that's one example of an app that I, keep running, even though it didn't come from the App Store, because there is no App Store corollary to what Handbrake does for me. And so I keep that running. But if I'm thinking to myself, I need to add a function to my computer, or I have a process that I need to add to my system, the first place I go is no longer sort of Google and reviews. It's the App Store. And so I'm not even going to, just based on my changing behavior, I'm not even going to see apps that don't come from, that aren't in the App Store, by and large anymore. And I think that's important. When I'm looking at new apps and new functionality, I'm not going to see it if it's not there.
And that's one of the things, by the way, yesterday I was telling you I was trying to debug a slowdown on my wife's system yesterday, and there are some old, there are a couple old programs that were a couple of operating systems ago or whatever that I never used, and I was just trying to clean things up and make sure there's not something that somehow has an incompatibility that I'm not aware of, or what I mean. There might be something out there. I think this slowness, just FYI, was primarily needing a RAM upgrade, which is coming. But otherwise, there were a couple of things I tried to clean up, and that was one of my deciding factors. I just feel very confident that if it was bought in the App Store, there's a certain level of support and a likelihood that there'll be compatibility with operating system updates, and that these aren't sort of squirrely apps that some kid in his garage isn't supporting anymore or whatever. So I did delete a few things, some larger than others, but there's just some stuff in there that, and some of them were really small programs that did a single thing, and I haven't used them for a while, but I didn't get them from the App Store, and I just deleted them. I don't care to have them around. And as you go through these operating system updates, you've got these sort of old small programs in there. Just, I'm with you. If it's not in the App Store, it's a very easy decision for me just to get rid of it and not worry about updating it anymore.
Well, and so, it gets back to, I feel the pain. I get it. And, if you're, for developers, I absolutely feel it. And it's hard because, I'm typically very much on the side of the cause of developers. And I think developers are sort of the modern Rembrandts, and they do incredible things. And in this case, my behavior has changed dramatically in a very short period. And that surprised me.
I'm just looking through here at what I have bought through the App Store. Some of them they were cheap, and I thought maybe I'd use them. But yeah, it's very interesting, actually. I absolutely feel that way. I mean, I got that little warning again, so it's a little annoying that once, but and that was the first I'd, really sort of processed, okay, this is, they've gotten serious here about, trying to, push more developers into the App Store. Well, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see, 90% plus of all apps available that way, and feeling like, that same sort of, it's going to play on all my computers and, whatever, like that I just have a level of trust. It's a level of convenience. And it's annoying to me when there's something that I want and it's not available there.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer to use that for almost all my software purchases. Absolutely would.
Okay. I'm glad we got that one sorted out.
Interesting.
I think that's all we got.
So,
I think, what do you have? Do you have something else?
No.
I think we're good.
Yeah. If we had more time, a friend of the show who we had on a few weeks ago, Devon, he's got a big event coming up this weekend with superheroes in Park City. And I didn't think until we were in the middle of the show that it might be fun to call him and talk about his preparation for that thing. But maybe we can do that on the next show.
All right. Let's put that on the list.
It's on the list. Okay.
Right. Hey, good talking to you.
You too.
Go see if you can win a race or something today. That'd be good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Try.
Okay. Bye.